Hey guys, I'm back wanting to explain what we've got going on in DC300 as far as redundancy goes. So, we're not going to really talk about any theory or anything. Um, we're just going to talk about exactly what you need to do should you experience any cooling issues in DC300. So, what prompted this whole thing was there was a situation where a customer put a ticket in saying, hey, our stuff is running too hot. That's normal. Technician goes out, turns on a CRAH unit. It didn't help, and it actually made things worse. Well, there's a reason why it made it worse and it didn't help. So at some point in the project, we had to go valve off a bunch of the units under the floor because they have what's called a three-way valve. Those units are identified here. So a three-way valve for the type of system that we have is terrible. It just doesn't work. It's terribly inefficient. So the performance of the chiller system and the efficiency of the chiller system go way down when those valves are open. And so it was like, we just have to shut them. We have to keep them shut. But another thing that we had to do was go shut all the valves on any of the non-running units. So we identified these running units that we wanted and turned everything else off. And when I say turned it off, I mean physically valving the water off under the floor, the isolation valves, so that water could not run through them because we did not want them to run at that stage in the project. So going back to the customer thing, we just know now that we've progressed to a certain point in that project where it's actually a happy medium between inefficiency and performance, that we can actually go turn some of the units back on and leave them as standby units. From an engineering perspective, we should never need them because there's already 4 units of redundancy built into this running number. And I'm sure you've seen this target redundancy number. So all the redundant units that are running are already running. So you shouldn't ever, from an engineering perspective, have to go turn on an extra unit. However, I'm not so naive to say that there's not situations where you're going to do that. So that's why I have to make this and explain to meet that happy medium. Going back to our matrix, these are the units. These are the only units that can be used in DC300 for redundancy. Really quick on why: because they have a two-way valve and they're not one of the running units. It's as simple as that. So two-way valves are actually beneficial for the type of system that we have. That's why we can keep these valved open and operational to where we can use them at any given time. So again, this is the happy medium between the engineering and then the operations, because obviously there's going to be cases where we need to go turn on standby units, and prior to a couple weeks ago we just couldn't do that. So at the middle to end of December, it's when a bunch of us went through, identified units that had two-way valves, valved them back open, and now we have this list of standbys. So now it's you guys' responsibility. I sent this out in email. This is in our equipment folder in our Raleigh runbook, equipment HVAC, and it'll say DC300 CRAH matrix. Bookmark it, print it, have it available, because these are the only units that can be turned on in the case of an emergency. So kind of my expectation would be, I don't have a problem with turning on units as we've done in the past, as long as it's this group of units. Otherwise, it's going to create issues. I mean, selfishly for you guys, it's going to create problems, and you're the one on site. You've got to deal with it, talk to the customers. So we're just trying to save you from all of that grief by valving these on, going through all this work, and making this list. So then the expectation is, now that the list is made, you guys have access to it. These are the ones that you can use. So in summary, again, throughout that project, we had to valve off units under the floor, which created an issue of, someone could potentially go turn one on that's valved off and actually make issues worse. So the happy medium there which is going back and identifying what units could be potentially used, valve those back on, and then create a list of these running standby units. And these now can be used, but they're the only ones that can be used. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, always, I don't get mad at anybody for reaching out, especially if it's facility related, before they didn't make a decision. So I'm available. Give me a ring, and we can walk through it. So thanks.